And we are live. Welcome to another edition of DT Live. This is Taking Into Account episode 15. Last week I did Taking Into Account episode 14 live, and it was a nice change of pace. Last week I needed to do it live because of my work schedule. I only had so much time allotted. Today is a similar situation, so I thought it worked out so well last week doing Taking Into Account live. Let's do it again live this week. Several of you guys are already in the chat hanging out. Let me see who's in the chat. We had Gibran was here early. He said, "What's up?" Ebotas, hi. Peter, how you doing? Yes, Peter, I do have a coffee addiction. I've always got to have my coffee. Noah stopped by for a second, said, "Hey, morning coffee's the most important beverage." Absolutely. Yeah, Logan, how are you doing? Johan, good afternoon. Silent Robot, how are you doing, sir? Tom, Alex, good to see all of you guys. You guys hanging out in the chat, how's the audio? Is the audio fine? Yeah, Tom, greetings from Germany. Oh. Singa says hi. Paul, how you doing, sir? Yep, everything's good. Okay. Now, typically, these Taking Into Account episodes, when I pre-record them, they typically run between 30 minutes to 40 minutes. I usually try to keep them around a half an hour. If they go a little longer than a half an hour, that's fine. Because today I'm doing this live, and I'm interacting with the chat a little bit. You know, the episode may run upwards of an hour. I don't want to go past 1 hour for this because, again, people have gotten used to these shows being a little shorter in length. I don't really want to push it, past an hour. Yep, sounds good. Sudo. Linux is shite. Whoops, wrong. Okay. Wrong window, huh? Good timing. Just turned on my computer. Yeah, Big Pod. Good to see you. Yeah, Paul's doing well. I'm doing great. Been a really busy week for me as far as work. That's why I haven't done much earlier in the week on the channel, is just for lack of time. I've been putting in a lot of extra hours. The good thing is Sunday through Thursday, I already worked over 40 hours this week, so I'm not working Friday or Saturday. I'm off today and tomorrow. If I did go in, it'd all be time and a half. I'd be working overtime. It also works out me being off today because I can do Taking Into Account live this morning. Today is also my birthday, so once I'm done here, I'm going to click, the stop streaming button here in about an hour. Then I'm going to go see some of the family, maybe eat a nice meal. I think my mom's going to take me out for lunch. So, yeah, 21 again. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Alice. Happy birthday. Yeah. Appreciate you guys. Yeah. Birthdays, I won't say they're meaningless, but, once you get to a certain point, your birthday is just another day of the week for the most part. Yeah. A year older and hopefully a year wiser. Yeah. Hopefully. Yeah. Yeah, I'm 21 again. Oh. Actually, one of those numbers is right. The 1 is right. The 2 is not right. 3 would not be right either. Let's see. Okay. Now, to get through this in a timely fashion, I'm going to go ahead and jump on in. And I will do my usual intro here. So, booting Linux on new Apple hardware is impossible. Or is it? We're going to discuss that. Virtualbox has a 0-day published by a disgruntled researcher. This has security experts panicking and rushing to look for some kind of fix. When will Facebook be held accountable? Mark Zuckerberg, he declines to answer important questions regarding Facebook privacy, security, how Facebook has been used to manipulate elections, for example, and in some cases start genocides. Are you a Linux user that wants to try Arch but has concerns? How to overcome your terror of Arch Linux? What are some of the genuine drawbacks of using Linux? What are the things Windows just does better? These are 5 stories that I will be taking into account. So let's get started. The first story today. Booting Linux on new Apple hardware is impossible. So this story a few days ago really had a lot of people worked up. So this article here from Forbes, this is Jason Evangelo, booting Linux is impossible on new Apple hardware. So basically the latest Apple hardware, we're talking things like the 2018 MacBook Pro and the Mac Mini, they have this new chip in it called the T2 security chip. Now this is a custom processor. It manages things like the Touch ID, SSD controllers, secure boot in quotes. What that is, secure boot ensures that the lowest levels of software aren't tampered with and that only trusted operating system software loads at startup. So in this particular case, this T2 chip, trusted operating system software that can load at startup is the Mac OS. It is not Windows, and it's not Linux. So that is part of the problem. In the past, Linux has always been kind of a pain sometimes to get on Apple hardware, but you could do it. Same thing with Windows, but now they're making it to the point where it may be more of a hassle to get Linux installed on your new MacBook than what it's worth. There was an article over at Phoronix. They stumbled across basically what's going on with the T2 security chip. Quote from Phoronix is, there is currently no trust provided for the Microsoft Corporation UEFI 2011, which would allow verification of code signed by Microsoft partners. The UEFI CA is commonly used to verify the authenticity of bootloaders for other operating systems, such as Linux variants. So, of course, bootloaders we're talking about, it needs to recognize grub, it needs to recognize, you're about to boot a different operating system, Linux. This T2 security chip, I guess, doesn't allow for that. Now, there are possible ways to get around it, although in this article by Jason Evangelo over at Forbes, you have this startup security utility thing, you have secure boot, and you have options for full security, medium security, no security. If you want to try to get Linux to boot on these systems, obviously you're going to have to go all the way down to no security. You just need to turn off the security features completely. Basically tell the T2 chip, don't check for anything. And even that, I'm not sure. So there's conflicting reports. Jason Evangelo here in this article basically says it's impossible to get Linux booted up, but I found another article over here on iMore says no, Apple's not locking you out of Linux on Mac with the T2 chip. Yes, by default, the T2 chip prevents you from booting into unrecognized OS environments, but Apple's not stopping power users from changing that. So it's possible, but power users, according to this author, can't do it, meaning that there's some hurdles to jump to get it to work. And I believe, he shows you the same screenshot. And basically, you click the no security setting here, is what he describes. But turning off the no security, or turning to no security, the T2 security chip will no longer be able to verify system integrity. You will no longer be able to use Touch ID authentication for things like Apple Pay. So you are disabling a few features on your system when you do this, but you should be able to then boot another operating system other than the Mac OS. Now, this had some people worked up. Why is Apple doing this? Some people see this as no big deal. Why would you pay, these exorbitant prices for these very expensive machines, and then do something like wipe out the Mac OS and try to install Linux on it? I get that. If I bought a Mac, I probably would just run Mac OS, even myself, but I know there are people that buy these machines, these very overpriced machines, and then turn around, wipe Mac off of it, and install something like Linux. One such person that does that, of course, is Linus Torvalds. He buys Macs. He works with Macs. Of course, he has Linux on his Macs. I wonder what somebody like Linus might think about this if he has trouble, or maybe altogether just can't get Linux installed on the newer Macs that come out. I wonder if he would actually consider maybe using other hardware. Obviously, Linux-friendly hardware, we've got a lot of options these days. System 76 puts out some really nice machines. The Dell XPS, their developer laptop, comes installed with Ubuntu out of the box, but if it runs Ubuntu, it can run any Linux distro. Lenovo ThinkPads have always been very Linux friendly. I've got a ThinkPad running behind me that Linux is just fine on. Of course, comparing something like Lenovo ThinkPads to Mac hardware may be a stretch, but certainly the Dell hardware and System 76 hardware is comparable or even better than the Mac hardware in many people's opinion. So I'm not sure why you would buy these overpriced machines and then try to force Linux or BSD or something, Windows especially, on that hardware. So what do you guys in the chat think about big deal, no big deal? To me, I don't see this as that big of a deal because Apple has always been pretty much, a walled garden. You're pretty much locked in to their own ecosystem, so I don't see that as that big of a deal. That's me personally, but and catching back up with the chat. I got some discussion about Arco Linux. Yes, Serge is in the chat. It won't stay long. You have a train to take. Well, thanks for stopping by for a second. And yeah, missed the collaborations on Slackware. Yeah, I need to catch up with Serge sometime. I just don't have the time to do anything right now. I barely have the time to do this morning. Those collaborations with Serge, can take hours, and I just don't have. I have very little free time right now. The last month especially. It's just been crazy for me. I'm trying to work out more time to devote to things like this. Did you try the latest Ghost BSD? You were asking sudo reboot. I have not tried the latest Ghost BSD. I should try that out though. Yeah, Hardick DT really liked the making. Inside the making of DistroTube video. Yeah, a lot of people really liked that. I'd been getting a lot of requests about that, and people wanted to know my hardware and software and what I do, how I go about, doing something like this. And I thought, yeah, it was a fun video. I'm glad I made it. A lot of people found it informative. I think a lot of people found out that there's a lot of work that goes into some of the. A lot of people out there, not you guys, probably many of you actually have your own YouTube channels too. You understand how making these videos is some pretty serious work, hard work. That's why so many people get burnt out on it. Many people start a YouTube channel, do it for a couple weeks, couple months, and then just quit, have to move on to something else. It's a lot of work involved. Now, thanks for the super chat. Pizza says, good morning. On the Saturday night chat, where I did have a face, if I sent you a version with my face edited out on Discord, would you re-upload it? Would I re-upload? I'm not sure what you're asking there. On Saturday night chat, so you showed your face? Is that what you're saying? You showed your face on camera and you didn't want your face on camera? I sent you a version with my... If I sent you a version of my face edited out on Discord, would you re-upload it? Yeah, if I'm understanding you correct, I've got no problem doing that. Pizza. There are ways to rip the video. Just pull it down as an MP4, and of course, Pizza has his own YouTube channel. Yeah, just throw that thing in Kden Live or whatever video editor you want, and for whatever few seconds, if your face is there, yeah, if you want to take the time to blur it out and then send the video back to me, I'll re-upload that video. Yeah, yes, do try Ghost BSD. Yeah, Apple keeps you tied, yeah, to their stuff. Yeah. But I think everybody knows that with Mac. I think this story is less of a big deal as if like a major company that produces, laptops like Lenovo or Acer or somebody like that, lock down their hardware to where you could only run Windows, for example. I think that's a bigger deal than Apple doing this. I think everybody kind of understands what Apple is all about. All right, let's move on to the next story. Let's keep this party going. So, second story on the docket, Virtualbox. Virtualbox had a 0-day published by a disgruntled researcher. And, of course, this has a lot of security experts kind of panicking because Virtualbox is one of the most popular virtual machine programs on the planet. There's no telling how many virtual machines are out there that use Virtualbox. There's a lot. And so this is going to be a big deal. Thanks for the super chat there, John. I appreciate that. So, yeah, appreciate your work. Cheers. Thanks, John. Much appreciated. Yeah, so a Russian researcher publishes a detailed write-up for Virtualbox 0-Day on GitHub after Oracle took 15 months to fix a previous issue. So this article from ZDNet, and of course, as always, I'm going to have all the articles discussed today in the show description sometime after the show is published on YouTube. Anyway, just briefly, a Russian security expert, he published 0-Day vulnerability affecting Virtualbox, which is, of course, Oracle software application for running virtual machines. I won't get into some of the details as far as exactly how this affects your VM because I don't know it from a really detailed aspect. But basically, virtual machines, the point of a virtual machine is it is basically a container, right? Nothing that goes on in the virtual machine should affect the host machine, but there have been instances in the past, these exploits, where things can escape the virtual machine and actually affect the host machine, and this is one of them. This particular guy, this Russian researcher, he has found a couple of Virtualbox exploits. He found one, I guess, a couple of years ago and presented it to Oracle because these guys get paid, right? They come up with some 0-day exploit. Hey, I've got it. Pay me some money, and Oracle will pay you, of course, the money because they want to know exactly what's going on so they can fix it. They don't want you to publish it, put it out there in the public until they patch it. And, so this guy did that, but I guess he was not happy with the process when he did this a couple of years ago because Oracle took over 15 months to fix the bug. I'm not sure how that affected him getting paid or not. A lot of times when these guys find these 0-day exploits, it varies, but a lot of times this involves some kind of escrow account where money is held in escrow. A third party holds the money rather than you just working directly with whatever company. But somewhere along the way, he got messed over a little bit, or he just wasn't happy with the way Oracle and Virtualbox handled the previous 0-day exploit he found. So this time around, he found this 0-day exploit and he went public with it. So he basically said, I like Virtualbox. It has nothing to do with why I publish a 0-day vulnerability. So he likes them as a company, likes their software. Says the reason is my disagreement with the contemporary state of InfoSec, especially of security research and bug bounty. So he's just been put off by how InfoSec and security research is done today. He doesn't like the bug bounty process. So instead of waiting a year and a half with this vulnerability, waiting for it to be patched, he's just putting it out there. It's like, Oracle, you got to do a better job. I'm not waiting a year and a half for this. Here's the exploit. Anyway, of course, I'll link to the article. I do think this is kind of interesting that the guy went through this process before, and I guess somebody along the way did him wrong. It's hard to say. The guy, he really doesn't go into detail. He just says he doesn't like the process. As a matter of fact, he called the process BS. So, all right, yeah. So that's our Virtualbox exploit. So, all right, guys. So back to the chat for a second. Yeah, try Introware and Starlab systems. Yeah, for OEMs or Microsoft would do. That would be a much bigger problem. Absolutely, yeah. I doubt Apple's going to see any real blowback from like Apple users for what they did. So yeah. Yeah, here in Europe, Apple is quite small, much less than 10% of the laptops, and practically no desktops. Okay. I would imagine Apple on desktops is quite small everywhere. Here in the US, Apple is not really big on desktops. Now you see their laptops, their MacBooks especially, everywhere, especially like on universities, college campuses. Seems to be the laptop of choice, actually, is the MacBook Pro. Apple does cut students a little bit of a discount on these overpriced machines. So maybe that's how they get so many MacBooks in our universities. Yeah, hear my proposal. We pay a few more dollars. Companies like that take a few more, less profit, and everybody is happy. Yeah, we talking about Apple, or are we talking about... Yeah, VirtualBox can host macOS with enough work. Yeah, VirtualBox can host a lot of different operating systems. Most people, we use it to test out Linux distros. A lot of us use it to run Windows in a VM. But yes, you can run macOS in a VM. You can run Android in a VM. I wonder if I'm sure you could. I've never tried it, but I wonder how iOS, the mobile iOS, would work in a VM. That would be interesting. I'm not sure why you would want to do that, but yeah, here at the university, the Dutch students use Windows or Linux, mostly Windows. The foreign students use Apple laptops, yeah. Also, the programmers tend to use more Apple laptops. I don't know why. Yeah. I could see that, yeah. Maybe they like the Mac OS, the operating system, better than Windows, if you're a programmer. I don't know. DT, do you have time between the 22nd of December and the 1st of January? My company is closed during these dates. That's Serge. I guess asking maybe we could get together and do something. I have no idea. I never know what I'm doing more than a week in advance as far as my work schedule. But I should have some time off during that time. Should have a couple of extra days off in there. So we might can do something there, Serge. And it's just been crazy right now because I'm actually, I've always been kind of not a whole lot of time. I mean, I spent a lot of time on this channel, but it really cost me sleep and just other things in life that I should be dedicating more time to. But really, the past month at my work, I've kind of changed roles at my job. My job's a little different. Hours are a little different. I'm putting more time in at my real job to where it's really tough for me to commit to anything, right now. I'm trying to change that, though. Hopefully, the December 22nd, that's more than a month away. Hopefully by then I'll have things kind of squared away. Be able to dedicate a little more time to the channel and to catching up with Serge, maybe doing some more Slackware or something else. Yeah, definitely macOS is better than Windows for non-Microsoft development. Yeah, that's why I would think a lot of developers, a lot of programmers probably would prefer, something like a MacBook rather than a Windows laptop. Yeah, especially good for enterprise development. And then you had to clarify yourself in parentheses, of course not for Windows. Yeah, Ron, hey y'all, and Derek, just sitting here watching. Okay, glad you could join us. Alright, and let's move along here. Okay, the next story on the docket is not a Linuxy story, but I thought it was kind of important. I beat up on Facebook all the time, and I came across this article over at TechCrunch basically asking, when will Facebook finally be held accountable? Zuckerberg has been asked by several different nations around the world to answer some important questions about all the recent scandals with Facebook, and he has so far declined to basically go to any of these meetings people have asked him about. So here at TechCrunch. So this article written by Natasha Lomas. Where's the accountability, Facebook? So Facebook has yet again declined an invitation for its founder and CEO, Mark Zuckerberg, to answer international politicians' questions about how disinformation spreads on his platform and undermines the democratic process. So basically, Facebook, actually on a past episode of Taking Into Account, we discussed both Facebook and Twitter when they had to answer some questions here in the U.S. at Congress, at some kind of special session of Congress that they had to attend. Both Facebook and Twitter admitted that they delete millions, hundreds of millions. Actually, in Facebook's case, it was something like over 1 billion fake accounts they had to delete, like in the last 6 months. It was a crazy number of fake accounts that are on these social networks, Facebook and Twitter, Facebook in particular, since that's what this article is discussing. So there are billions of fake accounts spreading all kinds of disinformation, trying to affect things like political elections, basically spreading propaganda in some cases, trying to change, hearts and minds, change, I guess, the zeitgeist. Anyway, representatives from a full 5 parliaments have signed up to an international grand committee calling for answers from Zuckerberg. Those nations are Argentina, Australia, Ireland, the UK, and Canada. They want Zuckerberg to answer some questions. So far, he has refused, or not refused, but he has declined. And in the past, a lot of times when these nations and these committees ask Zuckerberg to attend something, usually he'll send somebody lesser than him, right? He'll send like the CTO of the company, or some vice president or something like that. It's not going to be him going and answering questions in public. He's not about to go be grilled about the things that have happened. Things like he's going to have to answer questions about what happened with the Cambridge Analytica scandal from a few months back. Recently, there have been questions about how Facebook possibly was used as a platform to help start a genocide in Myanmar. And no, that is not outrageous. The last paragraph here in this article. There is an independent report assessing the company's human rights impact in Myanmar, which Facebook commissioned but chose to release yesterday on the eve of the U.S. midterms, when the most domestic eyeballs would be elsewhere. Agreed with the UN's damning assessment that Facebook did not do enough to prevent its platform from being used to incite ethical violence. So Facebook was used by a lot of people, maybe a lot of fake accounts, something, in Myanmar. It was used to incite basically a genocide, started, some ethical violence, some, ethnic cleansing or something. And Facebook realizes that, yes, their platform was used for this, and they released a report about it. But the day they decided to release the report was the day we were having elections here in the U.S., which was this past Tuesday. And all the news on that day, of course, was about our midterm elections, elections for the U.S. House, the U.S. Senate, where nobody is really paying attention to any other news but that. That was the day Facebook decided to release that report. Anyway, so will Facebook ever be held accountable for, the platform has a problem, right? It's really a problem with just social media in general, and I'm not sure how Facebook fixes this. We've discussed this with all these fake accounts. How do you sit here and delete billions and billions and billions of fake accounts on Facebook, fake accounts on Twitter? Yes, you have these bots going around. You've got these algorithms you've written, but all people do is just combat that with their own bots and algorithms to create all these fake accounts, and to use it to whatever means, I guess I don't know. Give me just a second here. Yeah, Tux Digital. The Myanmar thing was very complicated because they didn't have anyone who was translating and checking the content at all in the country. So Facebook was flooded with hate and inciting riots. Oh, that's, I didn't actually consider that. The language aspect. Yeah, you have to have people that can understand what is actually being written In Myanmar, they were not fake accounts. They were politicians in the country. They had to hire people who spoke the language to check it. But they were years too late. Yes, Surge, programmers use Gentoo. Now, I'm sure a lot of them do. Yeah, Chas. Microsoft keeps screwing up. Don't trust them anymore. Latest is they have an activation glitch where they are deactivating legitimate, valid pro licenses to home. Well, I'm sure they're probably taking care of that. I mean, if you have the license, that would be, I guess, unfortunate if it was deactivated, but I'm sure you could probably contact Microsoft and get that straightened out. Certainly if you have a valid license. Yeah, Windows is made to be used by all types of people, so it has a lot of functionality in by default. Let's not talk how good it does that. And we're going to get into some Windows discussions here in a minute. I'm sure Big Pod is waiting on that. Big Pod, of course, he uses both Windows and Linux. Yeah, the question is whether or not these programmers take the effort to get to know Linux well enough to work with Linux for their programming. Yeah. I can set up Linux fine on a desktop, but I have always run into issues on bleeding edge laptops. Always something. Yeah, and getting back to the Apple story from earlier, even though that story about getting things like Linux and Windows installed on the new MacBooks is going to be a real pain. To be honest, it's always been kind of an issue getting Linux running on Macs and getting everything working correctly. You guys know Ben Fitzpatrick. He is a big Apple fanboy. I'm going to call him a fanboy. He's not here to defend himself, but he uses MacBooks. And he is always having problems. If you guys ever see him on any of my live streams or other people's live streams, he's always discussing how, he always has issues installing, Gentoo or Arch or whatever he happens to be using that week, getting it to install and work correctly on his MacBooks. So, yeah, Tux Digital. Myanmar is unfortunate because a reporter asked citizens there, and they said they trusted Facebook over anything else. Well, that's not really a problem with Facebook. That's a problem with the rest of the country. That means you really don't trust anything else in the country as far as a source of information if you trust Facebook over anything else. So, obviously, there are deeper problems with Myanmar than just Facebook. Yeah, everything on the internet is true, though, says a JC disciple. Yeah. Yeah, if it's on the internet, it must be true, especially if it's on Facebook. Yeah, I use Windows few and far between. Mint does everything I need it to. And Manjaro is fun. Yeah, Manjaro is very fun. I've liked my time on Manjaro. Mint never liked your sound card. Okay, that's... You tried some other distros and it worked just fine? It's just a Mint problem? Yeah, the reason it was a problem with... The reason why it was an issue with Facebook, they were warned about the problem in 2014. They ignored it. They literally have the motto of move fast, break things. Yeah, I think a lot of these problems, though, with Facebook and Twitter and just social media in general, these governments are really coming down hard on them. And I really just think it's just the nature of social media. I've railed against social media in general many, many times on the channel here. I'm not a big fan of any social media. I think ultimately Facebook is fighting a losing battle. And hopefully very, very soon, Facebook just goes away. I really don't think it does anything as far as it doesn't advance humanity in any way. It really doesn't. And in fact, because of things like social network addiction, so many people are just tied to their mobile devices, especially. Every time they get a tweet, they got to read it, then whether they're in the middle of dinner or whatever. Yeah, it's an untamable beast, absolutely. It really is. Voice of Dissent says social media is a fad. I hope so. I really do. I worry about the younger generation that don't know about life before social networking. Because if you're like, 20 years old or younger, certainly, through your teen years, all you knew of things were like things like Facebook and Twitter and Snapchat and things. And I don't know. Life was so much better before some of this. I could almost make the argument life was better before the internet in general, not just social networking. I won't go that far, but certainly social media, in my opinion, has not been a positive influence on the world in any way. All right, I'm going to move on here. I've got to get going. Again, I'm going to try to keep this under an hour. I do have to go meet my mother here she's going to buy me my birthday lunch. She's going to take me out, whatever I want. I won't make her spend too much, though. Probably just go to my favorite Mexican restaurant here. There's a nice Mexican restaurant here that does some of the most amazing tacos. These steak tacos with like these grilled onions and this like cheese sauce, and they do a great stuffed avocado too. Oh, I think that's what I'm gonna do here. Yeah. Thanks for the happy birthday wishes, a JC disciple. Yeah. Thanks, Chaz. All right. So, are you a Linux user that wants to use Arch, but you have some concerns, right? How do you overcome your terror of Arch Linux? So I saw this story here over at Linux Insider, and I thought, because I talk so much about Arch, I talk about so much about Arch-based Linux distros, and I often have people tell me, yeah, I would love to try Arch. I see all your stuff on Arch. Looks like it's fantastic, but you know what? Arch scares me a little bit. So how do you overcome your terror of Arch Linux? This story here written by Jonathan Terassi over at Linux Insider. So basically, he asks, what are you afraid of? Well, the number one thing people are afraid of, it's hard to install. Yes, it is. If you're like brand new to computers in general, it could be hard to install. If you've been around computers a little bit, especially if you've been around Linux a little bit, trust me, you can get Arch installed. Arch is not that difficult to install. The Arch Wiki installation page is one page. And it's not like one massively long page where you got to scroll down forever. If you hit the page down key on your keyboard once or twice, you're at the end of that page. So it's a really short page, the Arch installation guide. You type a couple of commands, in the shell, and you're done. And you're done in under half an hour. It's not a very long process at all, and that is installing it the Arch way. There are graphical installers out there to help you install Arch if you want to go that way. If you still are scared of just installing mainline Arch, I just discussed Manjaro. Manjaro is great. Very easy graphical installer. Antergos is out there. I'm not a big fan of that particular distro because the graphical installer is easy, but it breaks a lot. I've had a lot of Antergos installs that did not go well. There are a million Arch-based distros out there. Pick one of them that has an easier install. Go with it, but honestly, if we're talking mainline Arch, the install is not bad. If you've been around Linux a few months, you've had problems, in Ubuntu or Mint or Fedora, whatever you've been using, and you have fixed those problems, a little bit, like you go and research the problem, you find, something to type in a terminal to fix your problem. You've kind of gotten to the point where you can kind of fix your own problems, research your own problems. You're fine on Arch. So Arch is not some a scary thing to be avoided. It really isn't. It's actually pretty easy to use distro, in all honesty. And also Arch. Yes, it's a rolling release distro. Rolling releases are unstable. That's the second point this guy makes here. But here's the thing with Arch. Every single person on Arch Linux, and there's a huge number of people that use Arch Linux. It's one of the more popular Linux distros out there. Every single person on Arch Linux is on the rolling release of Arch Linux. So everybody's on that rolling release train with you. Why? Because there is no other branch of Arch Linux, if you will. Everybody is on the rolling release model because that's all Arch offers, is a rolling release model. So if something breaks in Arch, for you, guess what? It broke for everybody else using Arch. There's going to be fixes for it right away. You should always check, of course, the main page of Arch. A lot of times it will warn you, hey, things are going to break. A couple of months back, we had this major update of Python in Arch, which broke pretty much all your Python apps. It broke especially any Python apps you installed with the AUR. They were all broken. But you know what? If you read the Arch webpage, it told you, hey, your next update, you're going to have a major Python upgrade. It's going to break all your stuff. So you at least get warned about it, and you know it ahead of time. You're prepared for it. You can fix it. Let's see. His point number 3 is, I don't want to have to roll back packages. So he's talking about package downgrades. Occasionally, because it's a rolling release, you'll install something and it doesn't work, and you have to downgrade them. You have to roll back to a previous version. I'm not sure why people would think that is a big deal. That's actually pretty normal. That's actually pretty normal to do in a lot of distros, not just Arch. I mean, sometimes that latest and greatest version for you just doesn't work out. So things I use every day, things like OBS or Kdenlive or Audacity, if they receive an update today, which they might. I mean, I'm on Manjaro, Arch-based distro, rolling release, and I get a new version of Kdenlive, and for some reason, it's just not working for me. It's crashing all the time or whatever. I can go back to a previous version of Kdenlive and just never upgrade to that next version. Maybe till the next version. Try that. Hopefully it works for me. But downgrading packages, that's not really something to be avoided or anything that's scary. Number 4, it doesn't have as many packages, and I heard the AUR is scary. Arch has pretty full repos. Now the standard Arch repos, yeah, they're not the biggest thing. Obviously, they're not as big as Debian's repos, Ubuntu's repos, Fedora's repos, SUSE's repos. But when you combine the AUR with the standard Arch repos, pretty much everything out there that you're looking for is available. Now, is the AUR scary? AUR is the Arch user repository. These are packages that Joe Blow, you and me can package up. We can put out there. They haven't been really vetted or tested in any real way. Can that be scary? Yes, but if you use Ubuntu, have you ever installed anything with a PPA? If you have, it's the same thing, basically. It's community packages. Be careful what you install. Be careful the source where you install things. Obviously, with the AUR, you have the package builds. You can inspect things, inspect the code if you're inclined to do so. But other than that, I've installed hundreds, thousands of packages over the years through the AUR. I've never had one do anything to my system. I've had AUR packages I've installed that didn't work, but I've never found a malicious package in the AUR personally. I've never found a malicious PPA either in Ubuntu, or a malicious, overlay build in Gentoo or anything like that. These community packages, for the most part, are pretty good. Yeah, Arch's tricks come with some major treats. So he's going to talk about the good things with Arch. Some of the best things about Arch Linux, obviously. Basically some of the negatives he just mentioned are also the positives. Arch is rolling release, so there's no in Ubuntu. You installed 18.10 in October this year. Next April, you install 19.04. 6 months after that, you install 19.10. There are no upgrade paths, major upgrade paths, so no more reformatting your hard drive and reinstalling every 6 months, or going through the standard upgrade path and hoping that works. Most of the time it does. Sometimes it doesn't. You end up having to reformat your drive and reinstall Ubuntu anyway, every 6 months. Arch Linux, as long as you're updating your system on a regular basis, you always have the latest version of Arch Linux. There are no, point releases or anything like that. You never, there's never a big story on DistroWatch. The new version of Arch Linux is out because you're always on the new version. There's a new version of Arch Linux every time you update the system. So, I'm going to get back to the chat here just for a second. Yeah, Present Arms. How you doing? Yeah, Present Arms on Linux. You guys should check out his channel. He's been doing some good stuff. The AUR can break your system. Yeah, I'm sure it can. I'm sure PPAs can break your system. I was just mentioning my own personal experience. I've never found any kind of malicious packages or anything that trashed my system. I've installed stuff that didn't work. That happens actually on a regular basis in the AUR. I've tried to install things that just wouldn't build properly in the AUR. You do sometimes run into dependency problems, and also you guys that are worried about the AUR. It's less of a concern nowadays because you have things like snaps and flatpaks and app images. So you really don't have to use the AUR as much now as you did just a couple of years ago. Yeah, Linux from scratch is cool. Well, you know what I would say? You probably should be scared of Linux from scratch if you are scared. Like, I can understand that one. Arch is not scary. Wasn't there some problem with some crypto mining software hidden in the AUR? Yeah, there have been stories about that. There were also stories about a crypto miner hidden in a snap pack that was available on the Ubuntu Software Center. But I mean, that's just like if somebody wants to do something malicious and package something crazy like a crypto miner and put it as a AUR package or PPA or snap or a flatpak or an app image, or even just put it up on GitHub and say, here you go guys, it's licensed under a free license, come get it. Ultimately, you're the one responsible. I mean, you're going out of your way to install these third-party apps, right? This is not in the standard repos, any of that. So if you go out of your way to go get these things, you're responsible. Make sure, you really need that program. Make sure it's from a trusted source. Like if I go grab, we were talking about Virtualbox earlier. If I go get Oracle Virtualbox, a deb package for it or something, I go get it from the Virtualbox website. I trust Oracle as a company. I trust where I'm getting that package. But if somebody has the latest and greatest, well, the Snap Pack thing, one of those was a Tetris game, like a Tetris clone. Why am I going and just getting some random game from Joe Blow from his GitHub page? Don't install, things that really you should know better. This was the same when you guys that run Windows or ran Windows in the past, you didn't just go and get just every random executable file you found on the internet. You didn't go to like these gaming hack websites. You knew better because you knew they were coming with viruses. A lot of times we as Linux users, we forget these things. If we've been using Linux for years, it's like in my case, you kind of get, you're not on guard the way you should be. Like if you run Windows, you would be a little more suspecting of some of these things you find on the internet and are trying to install. Yeah. So, nope, all the app images I've used open fast. Yeah, app images are great. People ask me all the time, what do I like? Snaps, Flatpak, app images. Yeah, all three. All three work. Yeah, so yeah, there are crypto miners that are embedded into some websites. Yeah. The whole crypto mining craze is what really has caused the problem here recently, especially with these Linux packages, these malicious Linux packages. It seems like the whole point of those packages is to get a crypto miner on people's systems so they can take over some of your system resources, of course, to mine for Bitcoin. Ultimately, those packages wouldn't harm your system, but they are stealing resources from your system to, but none of those packages would have done permanent harm to your system or any real harm at all. Yeah, who was that in the comments? Yeah, did we have a problem with a troll in the comments? I must have missed it. Don't have too many trolls these days. Yeah, it was just some Jesus saves message. Yeah. Use no script and you are safe from those mining scripts. Are we talking about the web scripts? Some of the websites that are trying to put crypto mining. Let's see, I've dealt with it. Yeah, present arms. Appreciate that. Yeah, just a troll. Yeah, we need more moderators. Hey, Big Pod, why don't you be a moderator? Peter, while you're here, congrats, you're a moderator. Alright. Yeah, I'll let you guys handle the trolls. And we'll add Tux Digital, Michael from Tux Digital. Alright. And let's move on. Alright, so what are some of the genuine drawbacks of Linux? What are the things Windows just does better? So this is interesting because this is not any kind of news story at all. This was just, something I came across Reddit the other day, and I just thought this was a nice question. What are some of the genuine drawbacks of Linux? And it's a rather lengthy discussion of things that Windows may or may not do better than Linux. Just quickly, I'm going to point out a few things. So the number one comment here, Windows has I/O completion ports which prevents I/O from making the whole system unresponsive. Yay, Windows! So, let's see. Used to be a larger problem than it is now, but driver support for some hardware can be spotty on Linux due to lack of manufacturer support or involvement. Absolutely. If some piece of hardware you have requires a driver, and that manufacturer refuses to write a Linux driver, is that Linux's problem, though? It's not a problem fundamentally with our operating system. It's more of a problem with that company not supporting Linux and writing a driver for it. It's not our job to write drivers for your hardware. But he's right. Driver support, still a problem in Linux. Less so in Windows, of course. Although, we may have an argument about that one. Yeah, and the community, I knew this one was going to come up. If you're counting the community, the Linux community can definitely be obnoxious and snooty at times. Met a lot of people that hate Windows with a passion, but couldn't actually say why Linux is better. Good point. We'll just leave that one at that. And of course, a lot of Arch Linux discussion about the Arch community. Yeah, RTFM. Yeah, proprietary applications feel like second-class citizens on Linux. I would agree with that. So, the way this works for most Linux distros is they only ship with free and open source software. The only thing in their repos is free and open source software. That's standard for all the big Linux distros. If you want something that's closed source, a proprietary application, things like Chrome or Discord, Spotify, things like that, you have to go out of your way to get them. Now, a lot of times they'll tell you how to get it. They'll make it a little easier for you, but you have to go grab that deb or RPM from some site, or you have to find that snap, that flatpak, that app image, AUR if you're on an Arch-based Linux distro. That's usually where all your proprietary software is going to be. It's those other package formats and not in the main repos of your distro. So they are definitely second-class citizens. Proprietary applications are second-class citizens. There's a reason for that. This is the whole point of Linux. Linux, the kernel, the operating systems around Linux, Ubuntu, Debian, all of that stuff is GPL'd. It's all free and open source software. They're wanting to promote free and open source software. So, yeah, I would say that is correct. Proprietary applications are second-class citizens. To me, that's not a negative. I can understand why it would be a negative for some people. Especially for people that, for ideological reasons, really don't care about the whole free software movement, open source software movement. They just want something that works. I get it. There is some discussion about NTFS, that it's a fantastic file system. We could debate that. I like Extend4, to be honest, but NTFS is not bad. Right now, Windows and Mac OS have much better graphics stacks. On desktop Linux, we have X11, which is really old, really crusty. We would like to replace it. And we have Wayland. Wayland is not ready really for prime time just yet. It's very new. Got a lot of bugs. Mentioned driver support already, but also talking about graphics. NVIDIA is a problem. Anybody that tries to run Plasma with NVIDIA will tell you all about graphics problems. Yeah, having a production desktop, especially anything involving audio production, can be a problem. Somebody mentioned security. Now, security is one where Linux comes out on top. If you're talking about security on Windows versus Linux, we're probably good there. So, high DPI support, yeah. Yay, Windows. You got high DPI figured out, more so than Linux. Especially, really, on Linux. I mean, if you're running the GNOME desktop environment, you're probably good with high DPI. The rest of it, the only significant drawback is fewer video games. Right. Proton. So, I think we can scratch that one off the list. Now, yeah, Windows still has more games than Linux, but I don't think it's really that big of a deal anymore. Unless you're just like a hardcore gamer. Like if all you do is game, like you're one of these competitive gamers, yeah, you need to be running Windows. But if you're just a casual gamer, yeah, you're fine gaming on Linux now. So, what are some of the genuine drawbacks of Linux? The sad fate of Microsoft shareholders. Yes, the stock price of Microsoft dropped lately. I'm pretty sure Microsoft is doing okay. Yeah, the emphasis on server over desktop functionality among developers. Obviously, Linux is more about server than desktop. I mean, it really, for the most part, is a server operating system when we're talking about GNU/Linux. Yes, Richard Stallman, I said GNU/Linux. Anyway, very lengthy thread. We'll link to this, but, there was some good stuff in here. I mean, we always talk about, the positives of Linux. There are some negatives. Power management was another. Absolutely. Especially on laptops. Battery life is a problem. You're always going to get better battery life on Windows than you will on any Linux distro. That's just, unfortunately, what we have to live with. Anyway, I threw that out there because Big Pod, he's in the chat today, and he's always, when we get down on Windows, talking about how bad Windows is, how the things that Windows are, so much worse than Linux, how Linux is great. He always wants to defend Windows a little bit. So there you go, Big Pod. That one was for you. So there are some of the drawbacks of Linux, some of the things we don't do as well as Windows. Yeah, Windows is not good, and no one who is honest with themselves thinks Windows is actually good. They just accept it for all the software and stuff. Yeah. I also think it is more of a mindset. If you're of the mindset that you care about software, what you're running, the freedom as far as free and open source software, security, privacy, you're one of those kinds of people, which isn't most people. Let's face it. Very few people, that's a very small percentage of the population care about any of that. They just want, can I get on Facebook? Can I open my computer, power it up, and can I get on Facebook? That's all they want to do. So that's the majority of the population out there. And yeah, most distros are battery friendly because they don't use as many resources as Windows. Yeah, but are you getting as much battery life? I mean, you're still not. I mean, the battery life, well, I guess it depends on what you're running, Present Arms. I know you run the Trinity desktop environment, but like standard Ubuntu or Fedora with GNOME, battery life isn't great on those. Mint with Cinnamon. I've got Cinnamon, Mint 19 on my Lenovo ThinkPad. Battery life is not great. It's not good at all. Yeah, Big Pod. You must know when with people who are hating on Linux, I always defend it as well, since I like both operating systems. Yeah, Big Pod, he's got Windows and Linux machines. And I kid a little bit with you, Big Pod. You know, I know sometimes you get riled up, so I got to poke you a little bit. Yeah, I can say Ubuntu GNOME isn't battery friendly compared to Windows. Yeah, it really isn't. Yeah, I'm not against people who use Windows. If people use it for a task, then have at it. I occasionally use Windows as well, but 99% Linux. However, I don't have a preference for others, yeah. Is it just trolls? I point out their issues. It is just the trolls. Okay. Yeah, battery life on i3 and OpenBox is good. Okay. I could see that. Yeah, the laptops behind me, yeah, I'm usually putting like the bigger distros on for testing purposes. But yeah, I could see, yeah, if you really have something stripped down, yeah, battery life would be better. Yeah, like Linux, Mac OS, I put up with Windows. Yeah, and as far as, you know, sometimes you just got to get work done. If you have to run like some Windows-only software because of your job or because of school or what have you, and you got to run Windows, you run Windows. Matter of fact, I usually like suggesting just run Windows rather than people fooling with something like Wine. I think Wine is a waste of time for the most part. You got to run, for example, you got to run Microsoft Office because everybody else in your office runs Microsoft Office. Just run Microsoft Office on Windows. Don't try to fight with Wine. Run Microsoft Office in a Windows VM or have a Windows partition. Yeah, Switch to Linux. How you doing? Tom from Switch to Linux says, "Hi DT, finally made a stream. Not normally online this time." Yeah. And I normally don't do this particular show here live. It's just I couldn't do my regular pre-recorded show yesterday due to work. So I had to get it in today, and I wanted to do it live because it would be quicker for me to get this done live. Because I really didn't want to be doing too much today. Today is my birthday, so as soon as I'm done with this stream, I've got a ton of other stuff. I'm actually leaving the house. I'm going to go spend some time with some family. But I needed to get this in, so, you know, kind of the old Bill O'Reilly clip you guys have seen a million times. F it, let's do it live. We'll do it live. So, we're doing it live. Yeah, use pass-through. Absolutely. In a VM, just use GPU pass-through. If you guys have a second GPU, that's even better for your VMs. And then you know, running Windows in a VM really makes a lot of sense. And Silent Robot was telling Tux Digital, learn GIMP, you noob. Tux, do you not use GIMP? You're using Windows in a VM because of Photoshop, yeah. That's probably the two biggest programs that I hear people say why they can't leave Windows behind is Office and Photoshop. Easily the two most common answers when people tell me they can't get rid of Windows. It's Office and Photoshop. So, but I would agree with Silent Robot. Learn GIMP. Yeah, GIMP does 96.45% of Photoshop. Is that an actual stat or is that just something you made up? That's impressive though, if that's actually true. All jokes aside, GIMP is light years behind Photoshop. Yeah. not a Photoshop user. I'm not any kind of artist or anything. GIMP is fine for the little bit of stuff I do. I mean, I do all the graphics and my stuff in GIMP, you know, all these overlays and OBS and, you know, thumbnails and, you know, all that was done with me in GIMP, you know, my amateurish skills. GIMP seems like a fine product, though. Yep. GIMP is destructive editing. Destructive editing is not acceptable. Okay. That was Michael. Yeah, firewall Windows if you don't have the updates. Yeah, I mean, firewall. Yeah. GIMP is very powerful. It needs RTFM to get the best out of it. Yeah. Well, you're probably going to have to do, I mean, if you don't know Photoshop, you're going to have to read the manual. Both programs have a massive learning curve. Massive. I mean, it's going to take you weeks, months, maybe years to really get to know those programs well. Either GIMP or Photoshop, so. Yeah, Linux blows for any sort of sound production. Yeah, it really does. Audio is a real pain. It really is. It's one of the things that, yeah. Intel integrated graphics is weak, but not compared to a discrete graphics card of 2018. That was my point. Yeah. Big Pod. I don't use GIMP, but I don't use Photoshop either. Why? Because I don't have artistic skills. Just look at my channel image. Yeah, you should try out GIMP, Big Pod. I mean, it's free and open source software. It's not like Photoshop where you actually have to pay for it. Download GIMP, try it out. You might like it. Yeah, trolls are everywhere. Get back under your bridges. Yeah, and Michael is defending Linux audio production a little bit. He says, we now have a lot of stuff for Linux audio production, like Traction and Reaper. It's not as bad as Voice is trying to say. Yeah, still not great, though. Yeah, present arms. The way things are going with Linux this past 8 months, I wouldn't be surprised if Adobe ported all their stuff over. Adobe has never wanted anything to do with Linux, to be honest. I can't imagine that we're ever going to see any of the Adobe suite ported to Linux. Hope I'm wrong, but I don't expect that. Alright guys, and as usual, you know, usually I like to end these things with a viewer comment or question, usually something from Mastodon or where have you. Now I've gotten this particular question 3 different times this past week. So last Sunday, was it last Saturday or last Sunday, we had our free and open chat, and Big Pod, who's in the chat now, asked me a question about my either Qtile config or OpenBox configs. I can't remember. He wanted to use them. They're hosted over on GitLab. He wanted to know, was it free for him to do whatever with any of my stuff that's over on GitLab. Maybe I didn't put a license or anything on it. Usually I try to include a license in the header of those files, but sometimes I don't. I mean, they're just config files. I put them on GitLab. They're all public. Just take them and use them. So Big Pod, you're free to use it. I actually got a message on Mastodon about the same thing. Yeah, guys, my GitLab page, I'll link to that in the description too. Yeah, if you want to use anything from my dot files or whatever, yeah, just grab anything you want. You know, here in the .config folder, if you want, you know, any of my OpenBox stuff or Qtile stuff or what have you, you're free to use it. That's the point of this thing. Especially some of the newer to Linux users are wondering kind of how things like GitHub and GitLab work. Obviously, if it's some kind of proprietary license or something, yeah, maybe you can't use it. All of my stuff, though, free to use. Do what you want with it. Fill your boots. Yeah, Adobe loves Mac. Yeah, well, that's true. That seems to be when people talk about multimedia production. Yeah, people love Macs for that. That's one where, you know, score 1 for Mac, actually. Yeah, even if it was ported to Linux, I would not get it because they're subscription only. Absolutely. And that seems to be where a lot of proprietary software is going these days, is the subscription model. Microsoft is going that way. Yeah, Kaizoku. DT, how often do you shave your head? Seriously. I usually every other day. What you see now, I've got a little hair on my face and head. This is about 2.5 days. I actually should have shaved this morning before doing this, but I'll shave afterwards. And you guys are going to ask me about razors. It has to be something with at least 4 blades. So I'm talking Gillette Fusion, Schick Quattro. Do not try to shave your head with a single blade Bic. You are going to wreck your head. Matter of fact, I wouldn't shave my face with a single blade razor anymore. So 4 blades or more. So Gillette Fusion, Schick Quattro. Yeah, may I ask for an advice of choosing between distros? Are viewers allowed to ask such question? Yeah, you can ask any question you want here. This is the chat is perfectly fine to ask anything within reason. Yeah, the subscription model is very expensive. Yeah, Photoshop's never been cheap, but yeah, the subscription model just makes it outrageously expensive. Yeah, happy birthday again, Derek. Have a great lunch. Give your mom a hug. Thanks, Silent Robot. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure we're going to have a fine lunch. I have a couple of drinks early. I normally don't like have a beer or any kind of drink in the day. Usually, you guys see me sometimes late at night on a stream or joining other people's streams like Toss or whoever. I'll have a beer late at night, 9, 10 o'clock in the evening here. I might actually have a couple of drinks today, since it's a special day. Yeah, if I could only spell command. You hit the Windows key and type CMD. Yep, CMD for the command line. Of course, you know what has a really good command line? Linux. Score 1 for Linux. When it comes to command line, Linux over Windows. And I know somebody's going to bring up PowerShell and all of that. No. Yeah, they don't really care about the proprietary backlash. I bet they only care about their own effort. Yeah. Yeah, enjoy your tacos, Derek. Yeah, did you ever use React OS? I have tried React OS many times in the past. React OS has been around for forever, nearly 2 decades. I mean, they've been working on that forever. It's still alpha software. After like 18 years, it's still alpha. So, React OS. By the time they are ready for an official release, nobody's even going to care. There's almost no point to it now. It would have made sense, 18 years ago. Now, less thrilled about React OS. More excited about other operating systems like Haiku. That's an interesting project. Yeah, have a Long Island iced tea for me. Yeah, not a bad idea. Yeah, PowerShell isn't fit to lick Bash's boots. Thank you, Allie. I absolutely 100% endorse that. Yeah, Adobe is the type of company that couldn't care less what people want or say. They have a stranglehold, essentially, so they probably only care about their cause. Yeah, it's all about money. That's typical for any corporation. It's all about the money. Yeah, the latest React OS has ButterFS support. Great. I'll be looking for it when they finally get the official release ready. The 1.0 release. Yeah, MS ported PowerShell to Linux. Yeah, did we really need that though? Yeah, Haiku is in beta now though. Yeah, they have moved from alpha to beta, so score 1 for Haiku over React OS. Haiku means quickly in Japanese. Yeah, PowerShell is pretty cool. Don't hate. Yeah, you're right. I'm a bit of a hater sometimes. Yeah. Alright, guys. Well, I'll give it a couple of more minutes and I'm going to shut down the stream. So if anybody got any last comments, questions, any more hate they want to spew? Yeah, disagree means trolling, huh? No, we can disagree without trolling. But trolling makes it more fun. Yeah, of course, Big Pod. I knew you were going to defend PowerShell. PowerShell is quite good for things it is made for. Are other Linux, Mac, Windows OS alternatives? Not exactly sure what you're asking there. Are other Linux, Mac, Windows OS... Are there other OSs other than Linux, Mac, and Windows? Yeah, the BSDs. We just mentioned React OS. Not great. Haiku. I wouldn't... It's worth trying out. But yeah, there are other operating systems. I mean, even Temple OS. Yeah, take off your skirt and say otherwise. Who needs to take off a skirt? I don't want to get demonetized, so whoever, keep your skirt on. What is your opinion about Manjaro? If you're asking me, I'm using Manjaro currently. It's great. Yeah, PowerShell is cool. Yeah. Yeah, I've tried Manjaro and Ubuntu. It was much easier to install DaVinci Resolve and Manjaro by using the AUR. Yeah, the AUR is fantastic. Now, the only thing is, don't be surprised if some of the things you try to install in the AUR just don't build correctly and don't work. That is the biggest downside, in my opinion, to the AUR, is you will find things there that either don't build correctly, you just can't get installed at all, or they install, but then they just don't run. You go to launch them, nothing happens. You'll find a lot of broken stuff in the AUR. Yeah, there are plenty of good plugins for video production on Linux. The problem is the level of expertise and the hardware which you need to buy for Linux. Yeah, but I mean, hardware cost is going to be the same for regardless of operating system, shouldn't it, Peter? I mean, you're going to need good hardware for video production, whether you're using Windows, Mac, Linux. Yeah. Yeah. Telechris, I daily Temple OS. So your daily driver is Temple OS? Awesome. Yeah, Paul. Yeah, I guess it's not a skirt, it's a kilt. Huh. Yeah. DaVinci installs perfectly on Pop OS. Yeah, DaVinci should install on every distro. Yeah, DaVinci Resolve is not going to be a problem on any distro, so you should be good with that one. It's a pretty big program that actually has a Linux client, so. Yeah, Peter's clarifying that statement a little bit. It's more about having preferences for certain hardware, which fit within your budget. For a professional organization, the hardware costs are not a big deal compared to other costs. Yeah. Video production is a pain for sure. Agreed, Michael. And thanks for the super chat, Kaizoku. Appreciate that, buddy. Yeah, maybe I just know video editor is mainly Premiere Pro in Hollywood. So that's the video editor you use, Big Pod? We got to get you over to free and open source software, Big Pod. I know you've mentioned in the past that Kdenlive is garbage. I quite like Kdenlive, though. Michael is in the chat. Tux Digital, what video editor do you use? Switch is still around. We should ask him, too. I've been using Kdenlive, and it works for what I do. I'm not going to say it's the greatest thing ever, but pretty nice free and open source video editor. Yeah, Big Pod, you're using DaVinci Resolve? Okay. Yeah, Premiere Pro is used a lot in Hollywood, but not by you. You're using DaVinci Resolve. Okay. Yeah, Kdenlive is Michael's preference too. Yeah, there are issues for sure, but I like it a lot. Yeah. I know some people complain sometimes Kdenlive is buggy. I've never had it, like crap out on me though, like rendering video or whatever, or never had it crash on me. Seems solid. Tried OpenShot. People have always told me OpenShot's a good alternative to Kdenlive, maybe a better alternative to Kdenlive. It's not. OpenShot is definitely buggy. Yeah, Steve, Kdenlive is not garbage. It got me out of a problem at work. Okay. Yeah, Silent Robot, all of his videos are done in DaVinci on Arch Linux. You had to mention that you run Arch Linux, right? By the way. Kdenlive is cool, says Allie. Yeah. Alright, guys, well, I'm going to go ahead and kill the stream. I got to be going. Not sure when I'll see you guys again. If we'll do something live this weekend. We'll probably do the free and open chat Sundays that we've been doing. I should be around this time Sunday morning. I think we'll do a morning one. I may do something live tomorrow on Saturday too. I'm thinking about it. Not exactly sure what I'm going to have planned. But I have the next 3 days off. Very unusual for me. A little mini vacation because I've put in so many hours early in the week. Really can't work the weekend because I'd be well into overtime. So, got the next couple of days. I'm going to relax most of the day today, my birthday. So, I probably won't do anything this evening on the channel. But Saturday and Sunday, you guys will definitely get some stuff from me. Maybe some live streams, maybe some pre-recorded content too. So, yeah, what time Sunday? We had been doing 10 a.m. my time, Central Time in the U.S. It's what we did, for those first several weeks before my schedule kind of got messed up and I had to move to the evening on Sundays. But I'm going to send you a notification. I'll send everybody a notification about the Sunday chat well in advance, at least 12 hours, 18 hours in advance. Sometimes Saturday I'll put out the notification for the free and open chat Sunday. Yeah, Lamer. Yeah, happy birthday. Thanks, Lamer. Appreciate that, buddy. I got to catch up with Lamer on Ballistic Overkill sometime too, because Lamer, I think you are the only person that I suck less at than at Ballistic Overkill. I kid, Lamer. You're not that bad at Ballistic Overkill. You're just worse than me. So, yeah, thanks, Michael. Yeah, happy birthday. Appreciate you. Yeah, boys, I'm out. Yeah, I'll try and make the Sunday chat, says Robot. Yeah, come back and see us. Yeah, we should play some Ballistic Overkill. Absolutely. Matter of fact, we should do that on a live stream this weekend. That might be something we do. Because I really haven't done any Ballistic Overkill in like 2 months. So I'm going to suck bad at it. I'm going to be terrible. That's why I really need some folks that I know I play better than. So if I could get Lamer on there, I can frag Lamer. Joe Panico's around. He's usually good for a few frags. Every now and then I catch Alan Pope on Steam. He's not very good at first-person shooters either. So if I get the right people in the game, I can dominate. If I get the wrong crowd in the game, though, I'm in for a long evening. Yeah, please give me a heads up when you go live. Yeah, you guys will definitely get a heads up on the live streams this weekend. So don't worry about that. You'll definitely get a notification well in advance. Yeah, something looks upset on your first screen. Yeah, that was the live preview of YouTube. I had paused that video. So, we'll just kill that. I didn't realize that was actually showing on the screen here. Yeah, Loop Esther, happy birthday, DT. Thanks. Appreciate that. Alright, guys. Well, let me go ahead and get out of here. Of course, before I go, I do need to give a special thanks here. The show was made possible by Ansem, Carlos, Chris, David, Leo, Rob, Tony, the producers of the show. Also brought to you by the fine ladies and gentlemen. You see all their names on the screen. They are the supporters of the channel. You enjoyed this video. Please consider supporting the channel. You will find me at DistroTube over on Patreon. Alright guys, peace.